Well, we don't have a release date for X-Men 97 just yet, but boy is the merchandise revealing all kinds of cool stuff about the upcoming series. Let's talk about all the new revealed merchandise and what it tells us about the revived classic series. But before we do all that, I wanted to give a shout out to my favorite podcast, Who Would Win? Who Would Win is a geek and comedy podcast that debates battles between superheroes and villains from the worlds of comics, sci-fi, and fantasy. Both James and Ray have awesome takes on all of these characters. It truly is my favorite podcast, and I have to recommend you check it out. The link's down below. Well, X-Men the Animated Series first came out in 1992 and ran about 76 episodes. The show itself was a massive hit, and if you were around then, you had your butt parked every Saturday morning waiting for the latest chapter of what turned out to be a classic series. This near-perfect take on the mutant team resonates all the way to this day. So, when Marvel Studios decided to revive the animated series, well, fans were ecstatic and can't wait to see it. But we haven't gotten the show yet and been waiting a really long time. Now, Marvel still hasn't given us a release date, even though we were expecting to see it this fall. But what they have given us is a ton of new merchandise and closer looks at some of these characters. So I thought we could take a couple minutes to dive in because there are some fairly interesting reveals. Now, first up is the Sentinels, and obviously, if you're a fan of the first X-Men series, you know the Sentinels were a big part of that, and it's clear they're going to be a big part of this new series. You can't have an X-Men 97 series without the Sentinels, and seeing them brought back really doesn't surprise me, but I really find it more interesting what's going on with the packaging. But we'll get to more of that in just a second. Not only have we got a good look at the Sentinel, we've also gotten a look at some of the other action figures, and even a close-up look at several, including Rogue. Now, once again, these characters are maintaining their classic original series design, and it looks like they've done that with Rogue once again. Now, we also got a new set of Wolverine extendable claws, and if you remember back during X-Men Origins, we got a version of these, and we also got a new version of the X-Men's Blackbird. And this is where we get somewhat of a pretty big change to one of the characters. Now, this particular set comes with a Storm action figure, and if you've been paying attention to the packaging, this version of Storm is a bit updated from the original series. In the original series, Storm had long hair, but it appears in X-Men 97, she's got an updated do, and has brought back the classic Storm Mohawk. Now, if you're a fan of Storm, you know this look is pretty iconic in the comics, and even invokes some other styles of costume, so I wonder if they're going to show up in the upcoming series. All in all, most of this merchandise looks pretty great, but it does tell us the tale about how close they are keeping to the original series and how important it is, it feels like to me, to maintain all the original aesthetics. This means Marvel's not trying to reinvent the wheel with this show, and I think that's a pretty smart move. The first X-Men series is beyond classic, fans love everything about it, and this is one of those projects that if you mess it up, boy, you are going to pay for it from the fans, and they don't want to do this with this classic property, especially as Marvel Studios brings the X-Men back to the forefront. As far as the release date goes, we haven't gotten any news recently. We did find out that I Am Groot is likely to drop in September, meaning unfortunately I don't think the X-Men are going to fill that slot. Marvel Studios is not going to Comic-Con, so I'm not expecting a trailer anymore from Comic-Con unfortunately. And with the writer's strike, I highly suspect Marvel is going to hold on to some of these animated properties and probably work with Disney Plus to release them next year. Productions have halted everywhere and there's going to be a huge gap in content, and Marvel has several animated shows with the X-Men, What If Season 2, and Zombies at some level of production, so they're probably going to want to stack those up next year for fan release. When we finally get to see the X-Men back in action, well, we're going to have to wait and see.